I'm going to talk briefly this morning about the intersection between this great institution, the businesses and organizations that you all represent as employers today, and our state's economy, our city's economy, and the economic development challenges we face. To do this all in a short amount of time is tricky, but after this, you know, we open the doors, 5,000 CUNY graduates and students stream in. You'll be overwhelmed. So this is I suppose, the relaxing part of your morning, the prep for the big event of today. In any event, it's a pleasure to speak with you this morning because this event is really important. And as a leader of the state's business community, let me make it clear. CUNY is a very important institution to our state's economy and certainly our city's economy in general, but it's especially important to economic recovery right now. And the work of those of you who are here today to recruit the talent developed in and by the City University of New York is not only important to your companies and your organizations, but it's important to the vitality of our city's economy. Now, our mission at the Business Council of New York State is to advocate for policies in Albany that create economic growth, good jobs, and strong communities all across the state. We work in Albany with a very basic assumption. And that assumption is that it's the private sector economy that is the source of wealth. It's the private sector economy that creates the wealth and therefore the tax base that enables government to provide the services our communities need. So it's fitting that there's a cross-section of government agencies here today as employers, but also, of course, important private sector employers that really drive the economy. Today, of course, nothing is more important in New York City and in New York State than job growth and job creation. So thank goodness all of you showed up this morning and represent all those jobs and opportunities for CUNY students. In fact, an event like this, a job fair in tough economic times, and the great turnout today is by itself a very good economic indicator. A little background on the Business Council of New York State, and then two observations about economic opportunity for us. First of all, as I mentioned, we're a statewide business advocacy organization. We're really the voice of the New York State business community, particularly in Albany, where our staff is, where our office is. About 70% of our Business Council members, and again, as Jay mentioned, you can think of the Business Council as sort of the state chamber of commerce. I was thrown out of Brooklyn a few years ago and sent up to Albany, so now I operate what is effectively the state chamber of commerce. 70% of our members are actually small businesses, and interestingly, a third of them are manufacturers. And we've got to do more, Pat, to get manufacturers, as the economy rebounds, to be represented here, especially in leading technology sectors. Now, thankfully, at the same time, many of New York State's great iconic companies, part of the industrial history of our state, are important members of the Business Council and serve on our board of directors. And I'm thinking about companies like IBM, GE, Corning, Kodak, Bausch & Lomb, Pfizer. Think of these companies in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Capital District, and of course, lots of great companies here in New York City. In fact, our chairman is Kevin Burke, and Kevin is the chairman and CEO of Con Edison, as many of you may know. So what does that mean? It means the Business Council is really, economically speaking, a very diverse organization with businesses, about 2,600 businesses, in all 62 counties of the state. And again, both large and small, both corporate and family-owned. And so that's why the Business Council advocates for governmental policies that will allow our economy to grow and to flourish, and those policies then lead to job growth that you all are here as part of. Now, it's no secret that our state, New York, and city face enormous challenges. We're in a fierce every day, really we're in a fierce global competition for the jobs of the future. We advocate for an agenda of fiscal reform that will lower the cost of doing business in New York to make our state more competitive and allow our economy to grow and to create jobs. Frankly, many other states have made changes in their tax and regulatory policies to compete successfully in a changing and global economy. And unfortunately, here in New York, sometimes we're too slow to make those changes, and New York loses its competitive edge. That's a big focus of our work. But we also focus on policies that will stimulate growth by making smart investments. And CUNY is a stellar example of that kind of investment. Institutions like CUNY, and for that matter, SUNY, because we work at the state level with SUNY as well, are the engines of our economic growth in New York. Now, one of the things that makes this event so terrific is that among the employers recruiting here today, and I know there are over 80 that are here, and some 5,000 students and graduates will come through the doors in a little while, but they're seeking career opportunities, and they represent a microcosm of the state's economy. Now, going back to 1847, you know this history, when Townsend Harris founded the Free Academy, this institution, CUNY, has provided tremendous opportunity to its students, and we always think about the value for students. But I'm here to remind you all, and I suspect as employers you recognize this, CUNY has also provided an educated workforce that's helped to make the city, the state, and the nation great. In other words, CUNY as an institution drives economic development for the city and for the region, and plays a critical role for employers. Like the global marketplace we compete in, CUNY is always on, 24/7, constantly seeking, generating, analyzing, sharing, and sending knowledge back into the world through its graduates and, of course, its stellar faculty. Whether they're experts at transforming specific economic sectors, whether they're helping to revitalize their neighborhoods around New York City or in other places, whether they're helping to grow new businesses in new entrepreneurial ways that are vital to New York City and its future, CUNY's graduates leave no part of the city unserved and no part of the city or state's economy untouched. And for my humble part, I've been able, Jay might have mentioned this, but as an adult student anyway, to take courses at Lehman College and at Kingsborough in Brooklyn. And as Jay pointed out, when I ran the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce for a number of years, we did work with Kingsborough, with Medgar Evers, with City Tech, and certainly Brooklyn College on a variety of levels, because it was my firm belief then, as it is now, that you cannot do economic development if you don't have meaningful partnerships with higher education institutions in the communities you're trying to serve. Let me speak briefly about two areas that the Business Council sees as vital for the economy, for economic recovery. First, the financial services sector, which is the bedrock of our economy in New York State, and certainly the subject of a lot of news and President Obama's remarks yesterday here in Manhattan. Now, as Governor David Paterson recently said, he said this repeatedly in the last few months, and he's got it right in my view, Wall Street is to our state what grapes are to California, what automobiles are to Michigan, what oil is to Texas. We need to remember that. You know, our research affiliate, the Public Policy Institute, that's sort of our think tank of the Business Council in Albany, is currently working on a report on the importance of this vital sector. Consider some of these findings. More than 1.5 million New Yorkers, 1.5 million New Yorkers depend on the financial services sector alone for their jobs. Beyond the direct employment of financial firms, remember, many professionals in real estate, restaurants, hospitality, tourism, a host of other related sectors rely on the dollars this sector and its workers spend throughout the city and state. And in terms of just raw numbers, you know, New York State has a gross state product of about $1.14 trillion. It's a very large economy. 16% of that state gross product is generated by the financial services sector, which is, again, makes it the largest and most important sector in the entire state's economy and certainly the city's economy. Public institutions and government services are heavily dependent on this sector. 20% of New York State's taxes and 15% of city tax revenue is created from the financial services sector. Indeed, as I think the Post had on its cover the other day, the financial services sector, especially Wall Street, is the golden goose, or has been, of the state's economy, the city's economy. Perhaps most importantly for today's agenda, for employment opportunities for CUNY students and graduates, let's remember this. In 2008, again, this is from the study that we're working on now, it's estimated that over 10,000 graduates of New York State, this is a statewide number, in that 1 year, which by the way was the deepest part as we headed into the recession, over 10,000 graduates of New York State colleges and universities got employment in the financial services sector. So it is a huge and really important part of the economy. And I would add that, of course, it's been through some tough times. We all know that. And it is, fortunately, showing signs of recovery. However, there's some elected officials up in Albany, down in Washington, who failed to heed the warnings of Governor Patterson and, indeed, Mayor Bloomberg on the importance of this sector. And they want to put onerous new tax and regulatory burdens that some people view as damaging to the sector. What I would simply say this morning is, again, this is all in papers today, because understand how important financial services are to our economy, to employment, and urge elected officials to at least proceed with caution, because we cannot do things in Washington that damage our ability to compete. These jobs are highly, and companies are highly mobile in a global economy. Now, as important as financial services, we got to grow other sectors. We need a more diverse economy statewide and a more diverse economy in the city. So let's move on. Our view is that the key is to unlock what everybody calls this innovation economy. To unlock the innovation economy in New York that, in the end, brings or creates jobs and opportunities, economic activity throughout the state. And here again, institutions like CUNY and certainly SUNY will play a vital role. And here's an example. While the financial services sector is so key here in the city, as the membership of my organization constantly reminds me, upstate, we have a great manufacturing history. But sadly, we've lost, again, because the state's lost its competitive edge compared to other states and parts of the world, so many of those important manufacturing jobs over the years. And here's a real problem, especially for upstate. Job fairs, by the way, don't attract nearly as many people there as they do here for a very simple and troubling problem. Upstate, especially in central and western New York, bright, young, talented people have been leaving the state in droves. We've got real problems with population loss. In fact, and this is a rather shocking statistic, between 2000 and 2005, if you take New York State as a whole, we led the nation in the net loss of our population to other states. Meant more New Yorkers moved out of New York, again, especially from upstate, than other folks from 49 other states moved in. In the city, this is counteracted, thankfully, by foreign immigration that offsets the amount of people moving out. But that doesn't happen upstate. So we have these population losses that are devastating to the tax base, for employers, for communities, and certainly for families. In fact, in that same period of time, the other way to do the math is to say that from 2000 to 2005, and some of this migration slowed down because of the recession, we lost the population of Syracuse every year. In other words, over 200,000 people a year were net leaving the state. Now, an innovation economy is a key to turning this around. And that involves building on the state's economic assets and building on this history of manufacturing, research, academic, and human resource assets that we have in the state, but we haven't successfully connected. We issued a report back in January on the innovation economy called Transcending the Hamster Cage, Unfettering New York's Static Innovation Economy. And what we found is that too often the prevailing belief up in Albany is that if there's just some new funding program, some special training program, kind of a one-shot or a silver bullet, that's going to solve all our problems. And it doesn't work. And we know that from experience. It is just not that simple. Our report instead advises a comprehensive, kind of holistic strategy with 7 key themes. And I'll do this really quickly, but think about this. This is about the opportunity for economic development based on a platform of innovation with higher education as the driver, not just a passive partner, a real driver, institutions like CUNY. 7 themes. First, human capital. This is where institutions like CUNY play a key role in educating and training workers for this innovation economy. And it means well-trained people with all sorts of degrees, by the way, from associate's degrees to PhDs. And it means partnerships, really significant collaborations between campuses and professors and faculty and resources in education with specific businesses. Now, universities will have to partner with growing companies to match workers to opportunities, as you're doing here today. Number 2 are regional innovation clusters. Some of you have heard about this before. Again, in New York State, we haven't quite gotten it right. We haven't made a commitment. Rather than the whole state living under this idea of being all things to all people, where we can have every type of economic activity in Buffalo or Syracuse or Long Island, we just don't believe we have the resources to do that. We have to be more strategic. So we need to focus on defined technology sectors based on a region's strengths and assets and be honest about what goes where. For example, biotech and life sciences campuses in New York City and Long Island, out at SUNY Stony Brook, in another SUNY campus, SUNY Downstate, certainly CUNY campuses, but there's already a lot going on, so you would play to that strength. And we have the healthcare institutions, worldwide cutting-edge research in New York City already. Now, I get in trouble when I make these remarks in Buffalo because people want to do this in Buffalo, and to some degree it can be done, but we can't be all things to all people. Nanoscale science. Nanoscale science is being pioneered by IBM and other companies in the Capital District, in Albany, and now with AMD or Global Foundries just north of Albany on the way to Saratoga. What's that mean? It means there's already a cluster emerging in nanoscale science, and employers are flocking because of the quality of the workforce from RPI, from SUNY Albany, from other institutions, and it's working. So let's strengthen that cluster and not pretend to do nanoscale science in some other corner of the state. And you can make the same focused arguments for energy technology, green tech. It can't go everywhere. It's got to go where the right university partners are already doing the work and the right employers are on the ground, and you accelerate that development and accelerate that investment. Number 3, business climate. Again, what we focus on day to day. Unfortunately, and this is just the reality, New York is has a very anti or unfriendly business climate in terms of its historic tax and regulatory policy. And if you don't believe that, you just look at national data and compare ourselves to other states. It's no accident that while we used to be the headquarters for the greatest number of Fortune 500 companies, that honor has for many years gone to Texas. Many of those companies have moved down to Texas for a variety of reasons. We just have not kept up with the competition. Economic development. We need tools, economic development incentives, to encourage investment in our city and state and to overcome some of these high costs and other barriers that make us competitive when we want to attract innovation economy employers. Number 5 is tax policy. Again, this is part of becoming part of the global framework for decision-making when companies decide where to go. It's not that you can say New York is simply the Empire State and companies should come here because it says so on the bottom of our license plate, or it used to, Empire State. There's so much more than that. These decisions are made with critical investments triggered by local tax and regulatory policy, comparing state to state to state, and now country to country to country. We've got to be more competitive. Number 6, green energy. And these last 2 points are really about opportunity that CUNY is leading on here in the city. Encouraging local power generation, smart grid, energy technologies, renewables, solar, wind, all of these things. There's a lot of great work going on in different parts of the state, but we don't have a focused program. Actually, GE has opened up a brand new research facility for worldwide research on batteries up in the Capital District. These are very important investments, and there's a lot of opportunity for green energy and energy technology development in New York State. Finally, biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, which I mentioned a moment ago, a sector where New York is already a leader, and we need to encourage its growth here. And by the way, we're a leader because of the terrific work done in CUNY and other research institutions that puts us at a competitive advantage, as opposed to some of these other conditions where we're at a disadvantage, compared to other regions and even other countries. I serve at Governor Patterson's request on the stem cell board for New York State. That's a $600 million program that invests in stem cell and life sciences research. And it is a thrill to see the grants moving, hundreds of millions of dollars moving to these great New York State institutions. Almost all the money, of course, is going to universities, public and private across the state, to drive life sciences and stem cell research. And New York, only New York and California have programs like this, and our program is really competing very, very well. So it's another area of opportunity and certainly hope. At the Business Council, we want to make sure that New York's political leaders make the right choices to ensure growth and opportunity for future generations of students. As we look to a brighter future for our city and state, CUNY, as I say, will play an important role. The university provides a unique learning environment for every type of student at every stage of life, something few other universities can claim. I think we can all be confident that CUNY will continue to support the evolution of our region's economy. As the mix of employers and students today here shows, CUNY is providing a well-educated and trained workforce for every sector of the economy. But I believe CUNY's role in our economic future is more than that. It's more than a supportive or passive role. It's much more proactive. CUNY can help and is helping to lead the transformation of this economy, this great historic New York State economy, to an innovation economy. How is it doing that? Here I wrap this up with a simple thought. I keep talking about the need for us to really advance an innovation economy for New York State and for New York City. Again, one that's more diverse and doesn't depend totally on Wall Street, important as that sector is. And at the end of the day, an innovation economy is a knowledge economy. And that's how economies compete now around the world. A knowledge economy succeeds because it is a highly talented, truly diverse, well-educated, internationalist, hardworking, and hungry, ambitious workforce. And I've just described the typical person, student or graduate, of the 5,000 that will walk through these doors in a few minutes. In other words, CUNY provides the foundation for a knowledge economy and a workforce, an educated workforce with the attributes I just described, that you have to compete in a global innovation economy. Thank you again, Jay, Matt, Pat, friends. Thank you especially all of you for being here. You're the reason we're here. You're the reason I was invited up to talk, because you're the employers. You're here to offer opportunities to these wonderful CUNY students. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for your attention for my brief remarks. Good luck today in your recruiting efforts. Please hire everybody, pay them exorbitant salaries, take every single resume back to work, call on Monday, everyone gets a job, and that will truly be economic recovery. Have a wonderful day. Good luck. Thank you very much.